Our other guest speaker this morning is Rachel Maxwell, who we've been meeting with all weekend long to talk about the possibility of what's next, what might be next for us as a capital campaign. And she's going to give us a whole report after the service, after you buy some more items in Fiasco. But she wants to talk to us just a little bit right now.
I want to start by expressing my appreciation to the 30 or so people who spent some of their Friday night or Saturday with me this weekend. It has been a beautiful experience, and my gratitude to Peter Hendy for organizing this weekend and encouraging you all to come and speak to me and explore this concept of what the future might bring in terms of growth, in terms of change, and in terms of living your beautiful brand new mission. My work is all future oriented, and it's all about possibility for congregations in Unitarian Universalist places and people. And I was just wowed by your new mission. We welcome radically. That's a statement. Love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. I have seen people who clearly live these values in this place over the course of the weekend, and I encourage you to think about how you want to unfold the future with this remarkable mission. I ask you to come and listen to my report, which will give you some details about what I've seen and observed over the weekend around whether you want to conduct a capital campaign, what do you want to do, how do you live your values into the future of this beautiful congregation with such a powerful legacy. So I will close with encouragement that you come to my presentation after the meeting. And then you can ask me questions after the service. You can ask me questions at the end of that presentation. And I close with these words, which I understand you've heard before, but always bear repeating. It is a poem by Margaret Wheatley, Discovering What We Care About. Ask what's possible, not what's wrong. Notice what you care about. Assume that others share your dreams. Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. Talk to people you know. Talk to people you don't know. Talk to people you never talk to. Be intrigued by the differences you hear. Expect to be surprised. Treasure curiosity more than certainty. Invite in everybody who cares to work on what's possible. Acknowledge that everyone is an expert about something. Know that creative solutions come from new connections. And remember, you don't fear people whose story you know. Real listening always brings people closer together. Trust that meaningful conversations can change your world. Rely on human goodness. Stay together. I'm pleased to be here with you all. It has been a really excellent weekend meeting with so many of you, and I appreciate your staying now, many of you that I've met with, and spending your time on this most important venture of thinking about how you want to live into your future as you embrace your past. And it's always an exciting experience for me to get to meet a congregation. You have so much that you have done. You are an extremely vibrant, important piece of this area. I've never been to Dallas before. I have one of my compatriots with Stewardship for Us is working with First Church, and I understand that you have people who come far and wide to this congregation because it is such a vibrant place. And I've certainly seen that. You're excited to live into this future. So my name is Rachel Maxwell. I'm going to see if, yep, sorry. I'm going to make sure this all works, so pardon my sort of making sure as I go along. I work with Stewardship for Us, which is a consultancy that works only with Unitarian Universalist congregations. We are all Unitarian Universalists, and we help congregations understand themselves in many ways, but primarily work with people around money. So we help with capital campaigns, we help with annual giving, we also do help with strategy and mission and vision work because it's all tied together. And you all, there are 5 of us spread across the country. We are a group that was sort of launched out of the UUA. There used to be a man named Wayne Clark who kind of wrote the book on UU stewardship and fundraising. And Wayne, when he retired, they didn't replace him at the UUA, and a group of the independent consultants who worked with Wayne joined together to form Stewardship for Us. And this is wonderful work. I have done this work and come to it from a finance and business background. I love community finance. I love talking about money. I love helping people align their money with their most deepest, most important values. So what I did this weekend was I met with a number of your leaders, about 30 people, I would say, altogether, primarily circle leaders, and then we also held an open session that a number of people came to that was for anybody to come and join in, and I wanted to know who you are. So I came to this weekend with a lot of information about you. I was given information on your history, including your financial and pledging history. I was given information about your strategic planning along the road, your hopes and dreams. So I knew in a lot about you that was all this stuff written on paper before I got here. And then it's always wonderful to come and understand and experience the spirit of a congregation. And I walked into your place at this moment when you have a new mission, which is a really exciting thing. I met on Friday with the board and your minister. And then Saturday I held all these meetings with different circle people and your pledge captains and everybody. And then last night I went back to my hotel room and I created this report. So I always try to apologize for looking a little bleary-eyed sometimes on Sunday morning, but I am excited to share it with you. And in a couple of weeks, I'll follow this report with a written report. And this report should be shared with the whole congregation. I will give everybody, Steve already has a copy of it, but I'll be sending your leadership, Peter and Kat and Laura, this report, and I hope they'll share this deck with you all, and so people who haven't seen it will be able to see it. So you have this phenomenal mission, and everything you do that is financial, as well as work-wise out in the community, is inspired and based in mission work. You have articulated a mission that you appear to me to hold really strongly and be very excited about. We welcome radically. That's just a remarkable statement. Love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. And my experience with your people is, yep, you do. And you're excited for this future. So what does radical welcome look like to you? And part of that is my job. It appears to me from my conversations over the weekend that maybe that radical welcome looks like providing space that serves the community, where more, even more better, as it were. Your Candlelighters program is amazing. You bring people in who use your spaces, who have values that are aligned with your values. It's having spaces that kids and families can thrive in. There are many different ideas about what those spaces might look like. It's having an equipped kitchen from which you can feed everyone. It's providing an all-gender accessible bathroom that's large enough so that a disabled person with a caretaker can both go in together. It's maybe having a shower so that when people come here, there are many possibilities for showers. I suggested when Laura jogs to work, but she didn't think that was it. And it's shining your light on the outside world with a digital wayside pulpit that's very large, from which you can shout to the world what it is you do here and what are your values here. So here's more ideas. Like, folks really threw out a lot of ideas, and I couldn't list every single one. People talked about having community space a lot. In almost every meeting that I was in, folks said, we want a place where the community can gather. We want another large space like the fellowship hall, where during Sunday mornings, kids can run around in those spaces. But on another evening, we can meet in that space while the fellowship hall is being used by another group, because some folks are feeling like, hey, the community wants our spaces so much that we don't have time in those spaces. Other people want a hangout space for teens. Basically, everyone who is involved with religious education wants more capabilities on video and way better internet service throughout the building. You want to live, yeah. You want to live your values. You want maybe greener spaces. You want to create a world that is very reflective of that new mission. So I come here, and I was asked to come and tell you about whether or not you are ready for a capital campaign. The things that I look for are healthy stewardship and strong funding. So is your annual campaign working well? Are your people giving? Is your budgeting process healthy? That really looks good to me here. Are you an engaged congregation? Do people do things? Do you have an engaged leadership? Sometimes I come to a congregation and it's the same people in every meeting, and the meetings are very small. That is not what happened here. So I've been impressed, actually, even though many of you say, oh, we need more volunteers, we need a larger, stronger leadership group. Frankly, from my own experience, you have a large, strong leadership group. I'm impressed. You're here. Yeah. You need a compelling, shared vision and plan for use of funds. So that is something where you need to engage your entire congregation in creating that shared vision and plan for use of funds. And you need an awareness of the need to use those funds and a kind of a sense of urgency, a deep desire, a push from the congregation to do the work that would be realized by using those funds on a capital campaign. So who are you? You're about 250 members with 165-ish pledging households. You have an average attendance of 130, 140 in the morning. That's all good, healthy, looks good. You have pledging that looks very healthy. Your average pledge is $2,100, which is a really nice, generous, an example of a generous congregation. Your median pledge is right about where median pledges are in sort of the average Unitarian Universalist congregation. Literally, the median pledge, if I look at all the congregations across the country, is $1,200, and so is yours. Your annual budget is about $350,000, so you meet much of your annual budget through your annual pledging, which is a very healthy place to be. And not every congregation does that. Often they have fundraisers that they rely upon, and that can be complicated because fundraisers change and shift over long periods of time. So this is your pledge distribution. You have 7 households that make up 1/4 of all the giving, and 113 households that make up another 1/4 of the giving. So this is, you could improve this a little bit. Like you could shift giving somewhat and encourage people in the 4th, I guess I wrote it, and 3rd quartiles to move up. One way to do that, and I think actually you might do that to some degree, is to show people a chart of giving and say, hey, can you make it to the next level? And but you guys are being generous. So this is not something that I hold as a strong concern for your congregation. I just want you to be aware and to see what you've got there. So guidelines on amounts that you can raise in Unitarian Universalist churches. An ambitious but realistic range for raising funds is about 3 to 5 times your annual giving. So you had $350,000 in annual giving. If all the 4 different pieces are in place and you plan your campaign well and you do use a visiting stewardship model, which means that every household gets a visit from another member of the congregation to talk about the capital campaign and to receive pledges. So what that means for you is that you could raise between $1 million and $1.7 million with all those pieces in place. That's a lot of money. You can do a lot with that kind of money. So there are different pieces of capital campaigns, just making sure we're tracking here. So in order to raise that amount, generally you need what we call anchor gifts. And those anchor gifts are going to be gifts that are 10 to 20% of the whole amount. So if you're raising $1 million, those are gifts of $100,000 to $200,000. Ideally, you have more than one of those anchor gifts inside your congregation. And should you go ahead with this, we create together a giving chart that allows you to see sort of, it gives you kind of a general sense of how many gifts at all sorts of different levels do you need in order to achieve this. Every congregation that I have run across has people who have the capacity to make anchor gifts. It's really a remarkable thing. What is important is that everyone is on board. Like everyone wants this to happen. They feel it. They feel it. So capital campaigns do not affect your annual giving. Generally, monies for capital campaigns come out of different pockets than your annual giving money. So what that means is most often they come from assets that people have, where annual giving comes from the cash that flows through your life. So often that's an income, or it's the amount that you have designated for your annual retirement. the capital giving generally comes from assets or special things that you are doing in order to make money available. We have people who say, hey, I paid off my car and I was gonna buy a new car, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna hold off for 3 years while the capital giving is happening so that I can use those payments I would have been making for the capital campaign and live with an older car for a little longer. Other people have come and they've asked their parents for early to give them inheritance early. It's really interesting. And parents, even when they are in other denominations, can know that their kids are so deeply committed to their Unitarian Universalist congregation that they do that so that kids, not really kids, but can give. People kind of my age. And there are a lot of different ways, and I can share more stories with you at another time, but that's how capital gifts generally happen. So don't think to yourself, oh my gosh, I give, because you're a generous congregation. Your annual giving is strong. I give a lot to my annual giving. Think about whether or not there's another place that is a place for funding that you might be able to bring forth for a vision that carries your mission into the future. So I talked about how capital campaigns involve a stewardship model, the most successful ones. I don't recall if you used a visiting steward model in your last capital campaign 10 years ago, but you did. So I see Cindy nodding. But just to relieve the tension around that, I thought I'd tell you what it looks like in brief, a visiting stewardship experience is that really what you're doing is you're connecting to each other more deeply, and you're doing it around this mission-based campaign. You're coming together and you're sharing your stories about the congregation. Like, what do you do? Who are you? Why did you come here? What is it that you hope and dream for this congregation? And then the stewards are sharing what it is that's happening with this capital campaign, about the programs and the projects and the hopes for the future. And then there's a financial commitment that's made, a form that's filled out. You ask people to make their commitment. And that's it. It's a simple but beautiful, it's like having coffee with a friend plus a commitment. It's all about community, my friends. So other sources for funding capital projects are congregational assets. It came up in a couple of my meetings that you hold a large piece of property here. Why is it, some people ask, that it's not being considered selling off part of the property in order to fund an expanded capacity for your mission work? Well, that's a good question. And that's a question that y'all should talk about a little bit. That I'm not recommending it because there's lots of downsides to doing it, but it is something that needs to be an open discussion for you so that you understand what your assets are. The value of your properties, at least on your balance sheet, is close to a couple $1 million. So that's a good question. You know, what are your assets? Do you have other assets? Sometimes congregations use endowment funds for building. You don't have an endowment fund, so that's not going to happen. We hope you build one. It's getting to be time. You're a young congregation, and it's time to start building an endowment. I highly recommend it. And then there are other loans that you can get to do capital work. So the UUA has a lending program. Its program is usually a little higher in interest than a regular bank loan, but sometimes churches can't get regular mortgages because their income flow is weird. It's based on this pledging. But that's all dependent on your local banks and your relationships with people. I never recommend that anyone get a loan for more than 15%. I'll take questions after. So hold on to that idea. The UUA allows you to have a debt load of up to 25%. I do not recommend that. So, and it would be a new piece of your budget. Like, you used to have a loan, you paid it all off, that's fabulous. Every penny that you spend on debt service is a penny that you cannot spend on programs. And I think you're in a good position to be increasing and developing your programs. So I don't know if I would recommend debt, but that's an internal decision that you can make. So I asked you all to do a little survey, and the survey had 5 quick questions. Your 77 people responded to the survey so far. It will remain open for the next week, and then I will give the final results of that survey in the written report that I submit. So your top 3 strengths that you chose, the outstanding one was your community and the people here. And that's beautiful. And that you are a welcoming, inclusive place, which seems to me a really powerful role that you have in this part of the world, too. It's something you can bring to your community. And a minister and staff that you care deeply about and you think are really strong, which is a wonderful thing to see in your top 3 choices when you have a fairly new minister. So I was really pleased to see that. And then your challenges that you would like to address. Facilities improvement, probably why I'm here. Growth in membership, and lay leader and volunteer growth. So you're feeling the pain, and I would say that you're feeling the pain around lay leadership because you are such a vibrant congregation. You've taken on a lot. You've taken on a lot. And it's beautiful, good work. Your community garden, your faith in action, your candle lighters, these are all programs that are a lot and so important to what you're doing. The growth of membership, I was going to put a chart around what your growth is because I got to see that, but I decided not to. But suffice it to say, your membership has been more or less flat for a very long time. So I do not recommend that you embark on a capital campaign in order to grow in membership. You can grow in a lot of ways that have to do with your impact and your mission work, but I do not advise that you take on this campaign in order to grow membership, because it's not clear how you're going to do that, because you have tried to do that, and you just haven't grown a lot. You've grown in what you in mission work. You've grown in vibrancy. So where are we? Did I move too fast? Oh, I see. Okay. So here, did I skip one? No. Wait a minute. I'm going back. There we go. Oh, no, we did that. That's what we were talking about. Okay, sorry. Your priorities to further your mission. Sometimes they move at the same time, but I have to push 2 different buttons. Sorry, guys. Were membership growth. Of course, these 4 are all more or less the same number of people identified these, you'll notice. So really, I would call them pretty much even. You weren't really sure about your priorities, actually. Membership growth, outreach, social justice, facilities, increase your volunteer base. So that's where I see your conversations need to be, is about what are your priorities. And I know that you're doing work on that, on your priorities. The strategy work, the strategic plan for the future is beginning to happen, and I recommend you make that a very mission-based strategy, and that you then will identify some priorities. So you hoped for growth, which is not at all unusual. Importantly, you mostly didn't hope for too much growth. Healthy growth doesn't look like more than 5%. A congregation really can't sustain and be able to cope with growth that's faster than that. And that's because what happens is the people get ahead of the building and the staffing and the programming, and then they get lost. So you don't want to grow too fast if you're going to grow. And when I asked, would you support a capital campaign if you had one in a very healthy way, most people said yes. And usually I see this. This is when I'm called in, but occasionally I see a much smaller number. So you'll notice that 24% of people made a comment, but 13 of those people said, probably, if I can. So that's huge. You know, you basically had the no was like 3 people, that 4%, and so you had about 8 people who said no, we won't support a capital campaign, and that no generally included it was about capacity. So that was just about like I have nothing more that I can give, and that's okay. So, what have you got that is beautiful? You have a powerful new mission statement and a future that is unfolding. You have been through a transition period that may have been rocky. I haven't heard a ton about it, actually, but you've gotten to the other side of that. You have a minister you like. You are ready to move into the future. You have planted a garden, or almost planted, at least tilled a garden. You actually, in all the meetings that I was in, people talked about working with the community, about inviting about opening yourselves to the whole community, about working with other churches, about inviting people through your doors, about having kids from other places know about the OWL program and join it. It was a very universal experience for me in all the meetings that I had. You all want to be out in the community making a difference. You have strong, committed lay leadership, as I've said, and a generous congregation. You have a very strong shared commitment to families and children. They are our future. You have a really thriving candlelighters ministry that folks say could grow if only there was like space and time and energy. That's an exciting thing. I have never actually experienced a congregation that has done a ministry like that. I'm very impressed, and I want to take that to other people and tell them, hey, here's something you could do. Your stories get told by me in other places. I don't identify you, but I say, there's a wonderful congregation. So what are your challenges? My first meeting was with the board on Friday night, and there was one member of the board who kept having to use her inhaler because there was a problem with the dust or mold in the building out there in the someone called it the dinosaur or something. Anyway, the portables. So I think I get it that you have RE spaces that need updating and improving. Your kitchen is, I think you all called it a warming kitchen? That doesn't sound like a cooking kitchen to me. So I always, and I said this in every meeting I had, I always recommend that a congregation your size needs a commercial kitchen. You need to be able to feed the community and yourselves. I deeply believe that. So I bring personal things to the table. You seem to not quite have enough meeting space for the rentals that you have, as well as your own meetings. You have very inadequate internet connectivity throughout the building, and you need greater tech capabilities in RE particularly, but also in this sanctuary. Steve was explaining to me that much of this equipment is 10 or 15 years old. We all know that things have changed in technology over that period of time. And there seems to be some trouble to keep families here. that I heard a few times there's a little bit of a revolving door with families. I think that's related to some of the things further up the list. So what are your opportunities? You guys are really excited to do more. Like, you already have a ton going on, and you're telling me about all this more that you want to do. Your Candlelighters program is really strong, and I think it's a ministry that is worth expanding. Your Faith in Texas program puts you in touch with other churches in the community, and you can leverage the strength of this community with the strength of other church communities that share values with you. Your community garden allows you to collaborate with others as well, also with shared values, and feed the world. What a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. You are so active. And you hold these liberal values in a place that could not possibly need them more. So, my recommendations forward are for you to make some opportunities to talk to each other about your visioning and dreaming. You need, like, everybody was a buzz, every meeting I had, and like after the meeting, no. Everyone wants to talk about this. Talk about it. Hold some specific sessions to do that visioning. About how to bring this, like, this is all brand new. It's not like you're behind. It's that you have a new mission. You are moving into the future. Keep that mission front and center as you consider what it is you want to do. Then make a list. I always like lists. Prioritize that list. And then decide, and then that'll also involve dollars, putting dollars on those items, and then you have to decide whether you want to do it. And I recommend that a congregation have a vote before you hold a capital campaign. And think about your staffing needs. I think I learned that your admin, Rebecca, has only 25 hours a week. For a congregation like this, that seems inadequate. You guys are really doing stuff. That's a wonderful thing. So think about those things. Think about adding benefits. Think about making sure that the hours match the work that is done by the people whom you employ. And maintain your honor congregation status, please. This is deeply important. Like, our denomination matters. The only way it gets funded is through our commitments. You guys held an honor congregation status for decades. So, my charge to you is bring your new mission to life. Welcome radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. So, here's my ambitious timeline for what you might do, okay? And this is wildly ambitious. This is sort of making things so that you could have a capital campaign in the fall-ish, or late fall, winter. But this tells you what you need to do. So have those opportunities to have the conversations, create your list. Then develop a proposed plan and prioritize projects, and discuss your funding possibilities for those projects. What would that look like? Are you ready? Consider those readiness factors. It takes a lot. I was asked by various board members, what are the risks involved in doing a capital campaign? And from my perspective, the risk is not you won't raise the money, because you're going to raise a significant amount of money if you decide to do this. You may not reach the top of your goal, but you're going to raise a significant amount of money and be able to do things. But the reality is you want to think about all those funding possibilities. How can you do this? And consider whether you want to take on debt. Consider whether you have property that you feel is actually able to be sold. So then you need people. From my point of view, the biggest risk is about distracting the leadership from what you're already doing to do this, because this requires serious leadership. It requires communication, logistics, tracking, lots and lots of people doing things. Like that stewardship model, I encourage visiting stewards not to be responsible for more than 4 households. So that means you need like 40 people to do visiting stewardship. It's a very limited job, but that's a lot of people to engage in leading. You need a capital campaign committee that I would recommend be actually separate from a building committee. You need people who can communicate well. You need people who can work with a contractor. So there's lots of pieces to that puzzle. So in the summer, you could recruit those folks. And I recommend you've run a small feasibility study actually when folks were dipping their toes into this idea. I recommend a full feasibility study, which would mean that 20% of your congregations would be talked to throughout the different giving levels about the those are private, confidential, hour-long conversations with households about the congregation and the project and the giving. And then you take a vote after the feasibility study is done. That's when I recommend a congregational vote about whether or not to continue, because then you have all the information that you need about whether to continue. And we train visiting stewards to do the work. And then you launch what's called the quiet phase of the campaign. So that is not the full-on campaign. That's going and talking to people usually identified through the feasibility study who said it was okay to talk to them, who are your lead gifts. And those folks make their commitments essentially in advance of the campaign so that you can launch the campaign, often with half of it already filled. And then you launch your campaign. And that involves a lot of celebration and a lot of work, and it does mean that people are gonna get contacted, about doing this, and you make your visiting stewardship moments with everybody, and then you raise your funds, and then you celebrate. And then the work starts. Because doing the work that you have raised the funds for is work. So back to the risk factors. That's a piece. It's disruptive. It's exciting. I think you guys would thrive in a capital campaign, but I want you to remember that. That's where I see primary risk. So your shared vision is powerful. You are powerful people when you work together to express your Unitarian Universalist values in the world. You will be able to fund what you decide you're going to fund. I'm pretty sure of that. But while you're doing it, make sure you hold on to each other. Listen deeply to what people say. Don't get annoyed that they don't agree with everything that you say. Express your appreciation for everything that people do and give and are here. So, ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th gale. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul on deck shines like gold in dark times. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. If you would help to calm the tumult, this is one of the strongest things you can do. There will always be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life, but I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. In that spirit, I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There cannot be any doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. Thank you. And now I will take questions. Yes?
Whatever happened to Landon, New York? Or did that ever exist to begin with?
Whatever happened to what?
Landon, New York. It was talked about as a source of funds many years ago when I belonged to UCLR. I think she's referring to Beach.
Oh, to Beach. So the as a source of funds for your own building?
Whatever. It was talked about in Little Rock for years, and then it just dematerialized. I don't know if it was real or not.
So granting through the Beach program is generally not for building additional stuff. I believe that they do give funds for new congregations starting up. And the UUA has loan funds is what they can do for you, not gift funds for renovations, occasionally specific projects. Like you guys received a Chalice Lighter grant from your district, right? Yeah, yeah. Yes?
Rachel, can you tell the story you told yesterday at one of the meetings about shared plate at your church? I thought that was
This is just an incidental story, which is that you guys, I guess, do a monthly share the plate. I'm not sure. We, at my Edmonds Unitarian Universalist congregation some years ago, decided to share 100% of the plate every single Sunday. It did not affect our budget. In fact, it grew. People were more generous. So we put $30,000 out the door every year through the Sunday plate offering, because what happened was what goes into the Sunday plate doubled when we did that. Like, it was very exciting. So that's the story. Yeah. Any questions? Other questions? Speak up. Are you all like ready to do this? Is that why you're quiet? Like, it was interesting. I came in, yes.
When you were talking about not being able to hold families here,
Uh-huh.
and a concern of mine has always been that we don't keep our youth either. They don't become adults that participate in the congregation and the life of the church. Is that something that have you seen in other churches, that having more facilities makes those children want to stay?
So young adult ministry is a challenge to every Unitarian Universalist congregation and every other denomination in many ways. Although sometimes the big, like megachurches and evangelical world do that pretty well. I think that they provide a lot of space. So if you want a young adult ministry, which is hard to do, you have to provide funding and space for that. So you need to fund leadership of it. You need to know that it'll take a while to grow. It's hard. That's a time of life people leave. And then, so it's hard to do that, young adult ministry. Youth ministry you want to hold on to. I gather you have a wonderful, vibrant, big youth group. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah. That's when you give the full amount to the region and the Unitarian Universalist Association that I think now in the southern region is based on your budget. And so that's contributing to the denomination as a congregation. And when you make the full contribution that they recommend, you're an honor congregation. I think you are again now. Oh, I thought there was a period when you didn't do it. No? Oh, okay. Well, blessings upon you. Keep doing it.
Yeah, we usually hear about it as fair share when we talk about it.
Oh, okay. You call it's fair share, being a fair share congregation. An honor congregation is probably one that's done it for a lot of years. You got your 25-year. I think the congregational history didn't reflect that. Oh, thank you. Yep, I'm sorry, I forgot that. So you do this. You're wonderful. Thank you, because our denomination is important. Yes?
One of the things that didn't come up, and I haven't heard anything about this, is that we, for several years back, we were a teaching congregation. We had an intern.
Right, Laura, Reverend Laura was one of your interns, right?
I'm just wondering how that all fits in, because I think that's also a very important thing that we do, to be a teaching congregation. And again, that requires financing.
Right. So usually Oh, it is. Okay, well, there you go. Yeah, I was going to say, usually it's an annual budget thing, and often congregations don't do it every single year, but they do it, every few years. And it sounds like you're going to do it again. Yeah. Come to the annual meeting. You will learn lots. Other questions? Well, I'm excited for all of you. My impression when I first came was maybe you didn't know exactly what you wanted to do, and then in meeting after meeting, it sounded to me like you actually do. So I'll be very interested to hear the results of your gatherings. And again, I appreciate Peter, who primarily organized this weekend and bringing me in and did a ton of work around putting things together. I appreciate Kat for stepping up to be part of that team. And for all of you who will become part of the team, because it takes all of you when you decide to do this work. Thank you.